I myself, the producer of this podcast, is not eligible to diagnose anyone with a mental health disorder. This podcast is purely for artists discussing the mental health hurdles they struggle with on a daily basis. Enjoy. Hello guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Where Is My Mind, a podcast about mental health and the arts. I'm your host, Christopher Orangeo. We're talking again about imposter syndrome. Today, I'm talking with Kassandra Perez. Kassandra is a Cuban-American born actor, creator, writer, applied theater practitioner, and inspiring director. Currently pursuing her master's in applied theater, where she is due to graduate sometime this summer. Currently, she is working with younger folks as a teaching artist through a traveling theater company called Living Voices LLC and NJ Pack. As you listen throughout this episode, you can tell that this is what she stands for: inclusivity and being your whole self. She is an open book. She is who she is, take it or leave it, and she doesn't really give a shit if you leave it, and I love that about her. So, without further ado, here's my episode with Kassandra Perez about imposter syndrome. We hope you enjoy. So yeah, are you in therapy right now?
Yes, I am in therapy. Yes.
How long have you been going to therapy for?
A year and a half. It will be 2 years officially in the summer, and I love therapy, and I think I might be a little dependent on it right now because I'm like panicking about it ending, and my therapist is like, okay, I think, we could start doing bi-weekly now, and I'm just like, okay, like, sure, I think I could do it. Like, I can do it, but then in the back of my head, it's like, oh no, that means the next step from there, is no more therapy. And I don't know. I don't think I'm
guess
there
is
yet.
that's the goal. I guess is to live without therapy. I've been going since September of 2020,
Oh, wow.
And I was very much like, I don't need this. I do need this. And like you said, the times where she's like my therapist, she's like, yeah, I'm going away I'm going away. I'm not going to be able to talk to you. And it ends up being bi-weekly. I've noticed a trend where I'm very angry, or I'm very my patience is a little thin. I'm on thin ice more so when I don't have therapy weekly.
Yeah.
So I guess the goal is to go to therapy just to eventually live without needing it. But I don't know. I can't imagine right now life without it. I can't imagine life before therapy, how I went so long without it.
Yeah. I'm the same. Like, this is not the first time I've been in therapy. This was, I guess, will technically be the third or fourth, more specifically the fourth time. When I was 15, my mother took me to family therapy because I had just terrible teenage angst. Like, we moved away from the town that I grew up in Union City. And then we moved to where I went to high school, which is in Ridgefield Park. And it was just that age where I had grown up with all of my friends. And then suddenly my parents were like, no, you're just going to, you're not going to do 8th grade with your friends that you've been in school with since preschool. You're not going to graduate with them. You're going to go to a different school, and you're going to meet new people. And I was very angry. And I've always been a kid who has anxiety. And then that anxiety just turned to just very bitter angerness, and I didn't know what to do with it. And then it turned into me being a depressed person. So, and then I was a really smart student, really good student, and my grades just plummeted. And terribly. So my mother's like, let's go to therapy. And it was a secret because, being Hispanic, we don't believe in therapy. We don't believe in seeking help because it's looked at as a weak thing. And no one in my family knew. The only person that knew was my mother, my sister, and then myself. And I didn't even know until going in. I was told I was going to the dentist.
Interesting.
And then I walk into this place and be like, oh no, it's therapy. There was a scene, there was yelling. I think I may have thrown things. I don't remember. I think I saw this guy twice, and basically clearly not a very good therapist in my opinion. He told my mother, he's like, she's just angry. There's nothing wrong with her. She's just angry. And years later, when I went back to therapy in my early 20s, because I was having a fallout with a bunch of girlfriends that I had, and it was just doing a lot to my self-esteem or whatever. I brought it up in therapy and then was talking about it, and then ended up talking about it with my mother. And I'm like, as a mother, I was like, I'm not hating on you or trying to give you shit. but you know me better than a stranger, and you allowed a stranger to be like, oh no, she's fine. Like, you clearly knew
Yeah.
there was something wrong, that you probably should have just taken me to someone else. And then eventually, just till I found someone that I felt comfortable just talking about it with. And then, of course, my mother was like, are you saying, like, getting really emotional? I was like, I'm
Of
not saying,
course.
like, I'm like, you clearly did what you thought was right, but like, you also kind of copped out a little. And then,
That's
you
yeah.
know,
That says something. That's takes some courage to say that to a parent. I started therapy. I was a family therapist when I was younger, and I dealt with a lot of anxiety when I was younger. Like, to the point, I don't even know what kind of anxiety it would be, but like to the point, like, let's say I had a basketball game at 7:30 at night. My mom said I would be like itching to get there and like leave the house by 5 o'clock. Like, no need to, like, I was very regimented. Like, if we went home a different way, I'd be like very paranoid about it.
mhm.
And I'm starting to discover now in therapy, like, why I was the way I was. And it's nuts. Like, now it's like I'm 34 and I'm like, man, I wish I could go back in time and just tell like younger Chris, like, you know, this is why you're feeling this way, and I'm in therapy, you discover a lot of your problems unfortunately do come from, I hate to say it like that, but like the way you're describing it, and I know for a fact for me, is like your parent, like my parents split when I was 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
So for a fact that was it. If they're listening to this or they're gonna listen to this, they're probably gonna like feel horrible or feel bad about it. But it's like that's the big, it's the cat's out of the bag kind of thing. Like, that they should know that did
Yeah.
something. So, but I kudos to you for telling your mom, like, no, like, you kind of dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah, and like, I'm very grateful to have that relationship with my mother, because for so many years we were just like, we hated each other. Like, literally, like, just we couldn't be in the same room together. And thankfully my grandparents lived in the same house, and my grandmother, who passed away recently, who I was very close with, as you know, um, she was kind of like the saving grace. If it weren't for her, like,
It'd
I
be
don't
a
know what
lot
the hell would
harder.
have happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I'm very close to my mom now, and like, I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad or feel like you're a bad mother. Like, I don't think you were a bad mother. I think you were, and still are, a very, as good as one can be. I was like, I can't imagine what it must be like to deal with a young kid who then becomes a teenager, who has this anxiety for years and doesn't know how to handle it, and then just dealing with feeling, the feelings I was feeling of like being abandoned in some ways. You tried your best, but also like, you don't know, like, this is the first time you're doing it. Like, again, our culture doesn't tell us to go and seek help. Our culture is like, deal with it yourself. And which I find really ridiculous, because
Yeah.
after being in therapy, like, I can almost therapize my own family. Like, okay, this person clearly has this going on, like, they need to,
It's kind of
unpack
interesting that
things.
you said that, because I have a lot of friends in different cultures. Like, one of my best friends is African-American. He says the same thing, like therapy is not an option. And I was like, okay, like, that's interesting. I never figured therapy wasn't an option for me growing up.
Hmm.
Um, I just I I'm coming it from a man's point of view, where it's like you're supposed to not you're supposed to not go to therapy if you're a guy. Like, you're not supposed to show or tell anyone like how you feel. Like, that's very strong, and it's getting a lot better now. As time progresses, like, through this podcast, the man to woman ratio, guest wise, is pretty even, and I'm really happy about that. A lot of like women like yourself were like right away, like, fucking sign me up when I posted about it. And you and I met through Real You Films. I was a part of one of your skits or scenes in your reel, and then I found out, I read a script of yours, and I found out you write, direct, that you do everything, likewise. And I think you and I are very similar with like the kind of humor and films and things we like. So I posted it, and when you responded, I wasn't necessarily like shocked. I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is piquing interest of people who I've just met, and I know who will like be open about it. My goal here is for people to come on and feel comfortable talking about, things. And I think for the past few months, we've been just talking about like what topics you want to talk about and everything like that. You said like yesterday, you were like, I'm just, this is one thing I'm looking forward to, which makes me feel good, because it means that people want to talk about it. But so you went to therapy when you said 15 and when you were 20, and then for the past year and a half.
Yeah.
Where do you think it's helped you the most? Like what time in your life did you think it's helped out the most so far?
I think that where it's helped out the most so far would be now. Because I decided I needed to like go to therapy. I'm in grad school and I'm graduating in the summer, May probably. I don't know. The school is not yet posted, so I don't really know. Um, but it was like I started in 2019 and in like early 2020, right before COVID happened, I found out that I had two new siblings that I had never known about who are, who were born in between my parents' divorce and my dad's second marriage to my youngest sibling's now mother, who is also my ex stepmom. And between finding that out and jumping back into grad school, which was very, very, very intense, I found myself just becoming very anxious. And it was like agoraphobia was kind of like sitting in, and that's not something that I've had for years. And I started to get a little worried. So I went to the like the campus counseling, and I met with the therapist there, and then we were talking, and then COVID happened. So then it was just like I think we only met once in person, and then after that I was like everything's going to be on the phone. And so I was dealing with, school, new siblings, and then COVID happening. And I was handling it pretty well because I'm someone who like I'm a pretty big germaphobe, and like I fear getting sick, and that's like where my anxiety kind of like sits and lies.
Yeah.
So once I knew that it was like I don't have to leave the house, I was like, great, okay, and like I was suddenly like fine. Like I had made my peace with having new siblings. Like school, yeah, it was hard, but then at that point I only had one class, and like my professor was very like lax about everything, like handed everything at the last day, like so it was like cool. And then my dad's parents and his sister and her husband all got COVID. And I've never been close with my dad's family. Like as a child of divorce, I assume you know what I'm talking about. I mean, I don't know exactly, but like, most children of divorce tend to kind of lean to be closer to one side of the family than the other. I never really had a good relationship with my dad's family.
But my dad's family was very, very small. So I'm close with his brother, my uncle, who's 16 years younger than my dad. But my dad's like cousins and so like not so much. Like I said, my dad's family's very, very small. But I do get it. Like you tend to gravitate towards one side or the other. So yeah, like when you were saying that all of this was happening and then COVID hit. So you probably were really happy you were inside, but
Oh, I was so thrilled. And then, they got COVID in like I want to say mid-March, and immediately I was just kind of like, oh fuck.
I see really quickly. I've never been in like the therapy I'm in currently. I haven't been in person yet. It's all been virtual, and I told my therapist I don't know how comfortable I would be if it was in person, because even it's still awkward for me to say shit like virtually and just say stuff in general. So I could not imagine how it is in person. Like, so I've been to therapy when I was younger in person, but as an adult, it's not like The Sopranos where I'm just sitting there and like staring at them across. Like I've only had virtual, and with virtual, I could pull up I could pull up work shit, or I could pull up just like Facebook, or like I could pull up something to like block, like I'm doing right now. I pulled up the Word document. I don't have to see your face. Like I can't see your face. So it's like when I'm saying some shit that I'm embarrassed about, I don't have to look her in the eye, But in person, you're like, I probably would be avoiding eye contact, but just knowing that, that they see right through you kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I've had both in person and virtual, and it was hard to get back. It was hard to get like in person, and then once I was, it was just like, okay. Just because also too like I'm a homebody, but also like I love being outside. Also too someone that used to like live in the city. Um, it's just been very hard for me to kind of just like, okay, like I don't go out at all anymore. So when I was finally like got used to like being in person, I was like very much looking forward to it.
In the middle of COVID, I got diagnosed with diabetes, but I probably, you look at me, there's no way I didn't have it. And I try to make light of it, but in the middle of that, I was having severe health issues, and I was super, super depressed, and my wife was very much like, you need to talk to someone. And she started therapy, and I just saw like a big difference. And, she says she sees a big difference in me. I don't, I really don't see a difference. I just think I see a difference with what I've been talking about in therapy. I see a difference with like the people I'm talking about, if that makes sense, like my relationships with them and maybe my outlook, but like with them, but like my outlook in general hasn't changed much. Like I'm trying to be a lot more, positive. I guess, it's really tough, especially when we're living, in a time where like everyone's just crazy. Like that's just kind of the best way to put it. Like, everyone is just super like misinformed in my opinion, and are just saying stuff that just to say it. And like you said, before we were recording, you're like, man, could you imagine like if I was living on my own? Like I couldn't imagine living on my own at the beginning of COVID. Like the beginning of COVID for me is a big blur, because literally when it happened, like I was telling you, like I had really severe bad, like they diagnosed me with seronegative arthritis. So it's as if I had arthritis, but it wasn't showing up on any test. So like doing this hurt my shoulder, my arm, like hurt everything. So there's that. Then you're locked inside the house, and you can't move, and that kind of just takes a little bit out of you as a human being. It's just like, motherfucker, I can't move. I'm only 32. Like, come on, I should be able to move. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, no, it's just been, it's been a rough 2 years. So I think like therapy is, I don't know how anyone is not in therapy right now, to be quite honest with you, and I'm happy that like that you think it's helped you at this point in your life. I'm sure it helped you in your 20s and when you were 15, but it's now, I think it's more essential than ever for everybody.
Yeah, I honestly like I think therapy is super important, and I find it so interesting in the last like 15 plus years how that's changed, how I had such a visceral reaction to therapy. And then now I am like a champion of it. And like I talk, like over the last like 7 or 8 years, I have really been very open about like mental illness, and just kind of exploring myself. Like there is an artist that I know. Her name is Tracy Noel Lutz. Oh my God, did I say her name incorrectly? I probably did. I'm gonna look her up in a minute, and then I'm gonna say her name properly. But she started this unapologetic women series, and I found it fascinating. And it's basically like, let's take a photo, and then like write your story. And my story was about mental illness. And at the time, I wrote about how like I had anxiety and depression. And years later, I'm like, no, I just have anxiety. And I was depressed when I was in high school, but like at the time, like I was still kind of diagnosing myself as this person. I just misdiagnosed myself. And that has just been kind of weighing on me, because it's like, I want to fix the story, but that's besides the point. But basically I just like wrote this whole story about like where I was and why I talk about mental illness. And it is something that everyone has or will experience, right? We could talk about how like, oh my God, I had a flu and I was terrible. We can talk about like how COVID was giving people diarrhea and they're like shitting themselves in their beds, or like literally vomiting up lungs or whatever. But for whatever reason, we can't talk about mental illness. And I know that it makes people uncomfortable. I know that people are like, you're sharing too much. And I'm like, I'm not sharing too much. And if you feel that way, like, I don't know, fuck off. Like, I'm sorry you feel that way. But it is so important that we talk. And for me, it has helped in my healing, because I'm one of those people that like, I give myself 100% to people because I just want the same for people. I just want people to be that with me. And I like put it out there like, hey, I'm cool, whatever. I also experience anxiety. And it's very, and it's all about like talking about how you are feeling. And I feel like so many people suppress emotions, suppress their feelings, and then it fucks you up in relationships, both romantically, with friends, platonic, familial relationships. And I've noticed that since being in therapy and since kind of owning my truth, it's so much easier for me to just be like, hey, there are times that I'm not okay, and I'm going to talk about it because I know that it definitely helps someone. Because I would watch interviews with like Robin Williams or like Carrie Fisher talking about their struggles or their lives with they were she was bipolar, and I know he had addiction. I think he had depression as well. But just having them openly discuss it, these millionaires, these icons, I found that to be so moving, and like them be so cool about it and still have fans and still have people loving them and wanting to be them and work with them. I was like, shit, I can do it too. Like, and if it makes you uncomfortable, then like you're clearly not someone that I want in my life.
Yeah. So there's two basketball players that in the past few years, Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan, have come out and said like, I'm depressed and I go to therapy for it. Like that's two athletes saying that. And then on the flip side for like football, you have players killing themselves, suicide because of CTE because they played a game that damaged their brain. Now, I would like your point of view on this. Do you think, because you would know better than me because I'm only looking at it from like I can't. Some of my guy friends, I can tell. Like I could say, like, "Hey, I'm not doing well," and others, I can't. Like I just, it's not my relationship with them. Do you find it harder for, as a society, like if you look as a whole, when men come out and say, "I'm depressed, I'm not feeling well," how do you think the general feedback on that or the general thought on that is? Like, let's say I was super, super famous. Like, let's say I was The Rock. Let's say The Rock came out and said, I'm fucking depressed. How do you think people would react to that?
I think people would react negatively. Sadly, I think they would be like, wow, The Rock, this beautiful man who has got it all, right? And he's depressed. Like, there's this idea with privilege and people who thinking that people who are privileged can't experience pain.
Yeah.
And that is such bullshit. I have a relative of mine who had like years ago opened up to being depressed because they have like certain medical issues, and they opened up to me about it because they know that I'm very open. And they had shared it with their mother and were like, she didn't take it well. And she's like, you have everything. Why are you? And I was like, well, that's not right.
Yeah. The one answer I hate hearing is, what do you have to be depressed about? Then you're not the person I can, like,
Realize that when they say things like that, you have just removed yourself from being someone who they can trust and can talk to.
Let's say a 14-year-old feels this way, they might end up committing suicide, and then it's too late kind of thing, So I think it's, I don't want mental health awareness just to be another fucking hashtag or like just a thing people do every month or just once, like 1 month out of the year. Like it has to be something where people have to acknowledge it. Like there are certain people, like I said, I'm not comfortable sharing my story with, but there are people out there, that are willing to talk about it. I want to start this podcast so people feel comfortable to talk about it. And I think it's, maybe I'm being a little bit selfish here, but I think it's going to just help me get over some of the things that have been bothering me and talking about it with some fellow creators who are my friends as well, and I think, and I'm hoping it is the same for you and every other guest on there, is that like, wow, I get to kind of talk and I get to let a little steam out, and a little anger, a little sadness out because this is a safe space. And there's not a lot of safe spaces out there, and granted, I know it might not be a safe space because it's going to go on the internet and like, it's going to go on Spotify. So it might, people are going to know everything I feel and the guests as well. But I think it's just still very like a good safe space to have and talk about like some of our issues, I want to talk to you about like, one topic you brought up that you thought would be really interesting is an imposter syndrome. And I think that, in my opinion, I think a lot of creators feel that. Like, I think a lot of creators live that like whole, like, that is my life. That is my entire life. Like, what are your thoughts on that word or that definition? Like, what made you want to talk about it on here?
What made me want to talk about imposter syndrome is that I feel it all the time, and sometimes more than others. And it sucks. And basically, I look at imposter syndrome as just my anxiety in general. This idea of like, oh, you're not good enough. Nobody likes you. And being an actor, being a creative, being in this business or trying to be in this business is so challenging because it comes with so much defeat and very little wins. So we're constantly feeling it. And it doesn't matter like how many teachers have told us, how many shows that we've done and people have come up to us and been like, can I have your autograph? You were fantastic. You moved me. Your voice made me cry. Like no one has ever made me cry before. It doesn't matter because it's still going to creep in there because, when you're getting 5, 10, 15, thank you, but no thank yous, or just nothing at all. Yeah. It's really like, okay, so there's something wrong with me. And then that feeling kind of then trickles down into so many other facets of your life that then you feel like, oh, well then if I'm not a good actor, if I'm not a good creator, am I a good lover? Am I a good girlfriend? Am I a good friend? Am I a good whatever? And so on and so forth. And it just, and it's kind of it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting that you said that because I think all my insecurities that I feel in the arts world definitely and unfortunately bleeds into like my relationship, with my wife. Not as much anymore, but like when we first started dating, it was a while before, it was a long time. I was in between relationships, and the relationship before that was very, very unhealthy. So, and I was like, if I'm not feeling like I'm a good artist, like what makes you think I'm going to be a good boyfriend? Because I was doing all this art stuff, not arts. I hate to say it like that, but I was doing I was trying to find myself as a writer, director, actor, and I was single. So like I was just in my pain by myself and my misery by myself. Now it's like I'm sharing my misery. Like my wife makes fun of me all the time. And this is the same. I am the same way after every shoot I'm on. Like depending on the shoot. Like if it's one of my own projects so after one of my short films wrapped, I sat in my house and I just cried. Because I was like, holy fuck, I made the short film. I met like 7 to 8 new people on the set that like I'm gonna work with again. But I was more so like, God damn it, tomorrow's Monday and I gotta go back to my normal life. And my wife is very much like, I love and hate when you're on projects because the day of you wrap, the next day, the night and the next day, you're just like, you're miserable because it's like, if I could do that every day, like that's what I'm striving to get to. I'm striving to become a paid creator, right? Not do it for the love, which I'm doing now. And I think that's where imposter syndrome lies in the middle of, are you are you a real artist or are you a pretend artist? That you're on the same kind of wavelength as some people. Like you just kind of like, it's, how do you say it? Like you gravitate towards the same like-minded people, and then to know that like there's some comfort knowing like everyone feels the same way, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, it definitely it that feeling of knowing that you're not alone, especially like in the last 2 years with COVID, right? Knowing that mental health for at least people in the United States, right, has like plummeted. Um, and knowing that you're not the only one suffering, or I don't want to say suffering, but or having a hard time.
It is suffering. I hate to say it. It is suffering.
It just sounds like such a negative thing. So it's like I'm trying,
Yeah.
like, I'm a very optimistic person.
I like to feel sorry for myself, and then my wife snaps me out of it. And I'm not just saying this. It always seems to be women that snap me out of it. Like, I'm very close with my mom. I'm close with my sister. They're and my wife, they're all three of them are the first to be like, get your head out of your ass kind of thing. So like I'm saying, I feel sorry for myself because I'm like, I am convinced I'm the only one feeling this fucking way. And I used to think that way a lot. Like, I'm the only one feeling this way. I'm the only one going through this. And the more you talk to people and people, I, you know, I'm not a big proponent of posting everything you feel on social media. Like, I'm talking about every little thing. There are times where I'm like, nah, I'm going to share how I feel. But I try to keep it funny and lighthearted or post some songs I like, especially Instagram. Facebook, I've seen too many people like post like horrifying stories like, oh my God, my wife just had a miscarriage. I'm like, why the fuck would you do that? Like why, stuff like that. But I try to not, pour my heart and soul out on the internet, because if I want to pour my heart and soul out into something, it's going to be in something I write or to a friend or to something of this on this platform, where we're talking about this. Do you think artists like, do you think artists fall under or feel like they feel imposter syndrome more than, I guess, like every day-to-day people? Because the point of this whole podcast is to talk to artists and see how mental health affects them maybe differently as a whole, like in general, like, because I know everyone goes through it, but I think honestly I do, from what I see and from what people just say out loud, I think especially since COVID, like artists have been really going through it, trying to find themselves. Like, so why do you think people, like mainly artists, fall under like the imposter syndrome or have it?
I think because we aren't respected for what we do. Yet people come to us for entertainment. Like, I have had people I'm a very like entertaining person. I am super fucking goofy.
Yeah.
I'm also a pretty serious person, but like for the most part, like I just like to be silly and make people laugh. And I've had people kind of come to me and just be like, make me laugh, clown, without like, using those exact words. But then in that same breath, these people talk about art and artists and don't support the work that we do. Like throughout COVID, for instance, what saved people essentially, right? Like saved, like kept people sane for the most part. It was art, right? Like Netflix made a shit ton of money. All of these streaming sites made a shit ton of money because people were just binging.
Peacock, I don't know if Peacock was before COVID, but Peacock kind of came out of nowhere. Now they have original content. Hulu is crushing it with original content.
Yeah, but that's what people did. People turned to us, to artists, to entertain them, right? Like,
How many times were there virtual table reads for charity?
I don't know how many table reads I took part in.
Yeah.
I like took to posting videos and like literally making people laugh. Like I would go on and do stories of like reading children's books, right? Obviously I didn't get nearly as many views as say like, I don't know what famous person was doing it at that time, but we were doing it and people were coming to us to help them, to make them feel better.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, we have art programs closing. We have people only giving attention to the bigger named artists, but then even still kind of stifling them like the whole idea of like you can't talk about what matters to you. You can only talk about art, right? And it's just
Yeah.
like that kind of falls in that too. Like, oh, so am I only an actor? Am I only a singer? Am I only a this? Am I that? And I think, too, like you read that piece that I wrote, which I mean I have to go back and edit or whatever, and I just don't really have the time. But it's basically about that, right? About being an artist or being a person who has multiple levels to who we are, and being placed into this mold, like, oh, you're a pretty woman or a pretty or like a handsome man, like that is all you have to offer, showing off your body. Oh, you're a pretty woman who is intelligent. Nah, it can only be one or the other. Oh, you're an actor. Cool. You can only post things about your work. You can't, because then nobody cares and you're all over the place. And I hate that idea that like social media has, on people in this industry or trying to, succeed in this industry. And it's everything is about social media followings. Everything is about social media followings. Yeah. And there are, I mean, I follow a bunch of accounts that are like trying to show its followers like how to garner more followers and how to properly set up your page. And it's just like, you have to be consistent. This is the kind of stuff that you have to post about. And it's just like, okay, but like, I don't care just about one thing. Right? Like, I am an artist who is educated. I am getting my master's, right? Like, the work that I do is and want to do is to in hopes of evoking change. I care about women's rights. I'm a feminist. I care about mental health. I care about Black Lives Matter. I care about what's happening to my people in the island of Cuba. Like, I care about all of these things. And for you to just say, put your energy into one thing and then and still happen to like get attention so like casting directors can see it, it's just like and it's feeding into that bullshit of like actors only act, you can't do anything else, your personality is this. And then to even go further, it's like, okay, my personality is only an actor, but then why aren't I booking jobs? Oh, it's not because you're not good, they just found someone better. But then it's just like, okay, and then it's just forcing actors in this day and age to just feel like absolute garbage about themselves. And then when we decide to kind of walk away, people are like, oh, she wasn't cut out for it. He wasn't cut out for it. Like, like they're weak. And it's like, no, I'm not weak. It's just these rules are bullshit.
And that, I think that plays into, imposter syndrome clear, like a lot of the time, like you could laugh, but like I go back and look at like the little scene we did Politico, and I'm like, I could tell like you're a fucking actress. Like you're not like just doing this to fucking for whatever. You're just not like, so I surround myself with people around that. So when I see an actor, an actress who quite frankly, I'm sorry, sucks, and they have 11,000 followers, that fucking bothers me. That bothers me to my core. But then I find out, because I'm very behind in a lot of shit. I didn't know you could buy followers essentially, or things of that nature. So I didn't know that. But when I see someone who puts out a shit film or who puts out a shit performance and they can call themselves an actor and that's in my category, I'm like, no, like, no, the fuck you're not. And
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What does this person look like? And this is not me. I'm not trying to shit on pretty people. Like, I'm not no. And I know, and like coming from myself, like I know I'm not hideous. Like I'm not absolutely gorgeous, but like I fall in like that line of like, oh, like, I'm not unattractive. And someone's going to hear this and like, oh my God, this bitch is full of herself.
No, but you better be, it's better to be fooling yourself, because I think all I can ever do, honestly, is Guido mobster stuff. Like I'm 6'1", on the heavier set side. I think I am a really good artist, a really good actor. I think I got better because before I took acting classes, I felt like I was very one-dimensional. I took acting classes. I've done a lot more dramatic work, and I look back at dailies or I look back at playbacks. I'm like, wow, like, fuck, man, like those classes worked, right? These people that are doing it are a mixture of, yes, tall glasses of water, 90-pound blondes, shit like that. But there are some people who are just downright, I don't get it. I don't see the appeal. Like, I don't see certain appeals of like I just signed up for TikTok, or signed up. Wow, I fucking sound like my mother. I just downloaded TikTok. And I'm just going to put like film work on there. and I see a lot of stupid shit. I guess that just kind of makes me laugh. But other times I'm like, this is killing people's fucking brain cells, you know? But then I come from the school of, well, I guess 10, 12 years ago, Vine was killing brain cells, but Vine was a little more creative because it was just 6 seconds, you know? And you had like Bo Burnham on there. You had like, I don't know what big celebrities are actually making TikToks. I'm not into that. So what I'm trying to get at is I get very passionate, angry when like you have some people who are, you know, people say like dumb people are some of the happiest people on planet Earth because they just don't know that they're dumb. I feel like that for art. I feel like that for some artists. They don't know that they are dog shit and they are loving every moment of it. The 35 views on their YouTube channel or their YouTube video, they're happy and they consider that they call themselves, I'm the next James Dean. No, you're fucking
Oh my
not.
God.
Like, I've seen it all. And I want to start surrounding myself around actors. Like we rehearsed virtually for like 2 weeks on like a 2-page scene and like you crushed it. Like I go back and look at the people I've worked with, like, and I have in my contacts or a story I want to write. I know for a fact Kassandra would be good for this role. This person would be good. Like I know that I'm not going to take my chance on someone because they have 40,000 Instagram followers. I'm not in that world, you know? And I think social media adds to like, wow, like you put your heart and soul into a project, it gets X amount of views on YouTube, but you have someone like sitting on a fucking whoopee cushion or throwing eggs at someone and it gets 1 million views because I guess just as a society we want that. We want to watch that. We don't want to we don't want anything that's real. And I think that kind of coincides with like I don't want to watch anything like deep and meaningful. I don't want to talk about anything meaningful. Just give me like fart jokes and I'll be happy, you know? And I think like kind of mental, I don't mean to ramble and go on a rant. I apologize. It's just certain things like that. It eats away at me. And maybe that's why I am in therapy. Cause I'm like, I can't get over the fact that, you know, Little Miss 90-pound blonde has 1.2 million views and she's dumb as a fucking doorknob or something. But
Listen, I am in there with you. And to start, don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. We need to all learn to just stop apologizing.
yes.
So let me start there. But
So
after,
angry.
no, but like after that whole rant, that's literally that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Right. And I've kind of just have gotten myself to kind of just be like, fuck it. Like I can't worry about it. Right. So it's like now if you go on my social media, it's like some tinted selfies. Like I'm very into skincare. So it's like, I'm going to post about it because I feel pretty. Oh, I did some this, or like, I'm just going to, you know, it's like, I don't even care anymore. It's just, I'm going to talk about and post things about that. Like I like, and that I feel that people are going to enjoy.
That's great. I got to the same point too. Like I'm just going to post some shit that makes me feel good.
Yeah. And it's very hard when you look at a job and they're like, oh, we want you to use this app or whatever, and you need to have a certain amount of followers. And I'm like I get it, entertainment industry like is all about making money. And I get it because money is important. Yes. But like, when did art stop being about art, and when did it start being about just beautiful faces? And like, don't get me wrong, like there are some really beautiful looking people in Hollywood specifically. We won't go into like the other realms, but just specifically film and TV. There are some really beautiful people who are also very talented. Yeah. But there are also some really beautiful people who are not very talented. And I won't say names because I don't want to be like a bitch, but like there are two particular actresses who in a very famous HBO show, which ended terribly. And one of them is absolutely gorgeous, and the other one is not your general beauty for Hollywood standards. And she is a phenomenal actress. And the one that is more beautiful is not. But who is the one that has been in more and more projects?
And then to the point where it's like, how do you cave into the stereotype or the typecast, or do you fight for everything you got, or is it like, fuck it, if I'm getting paid? Like, where does your moral compass aim towards at the end of the day? You know, I just got done doing my first feature. I was on it for 4 days, and I was playing, typical Italian Goomba. And the story is not your typical mafia movie. It's not, but I felt very like that was my first time, like I was playing an Italian Goomba. I'll just keep calling it Goomba. And I'm going to try very hard, in my whole entire career to not be typecasted as that, but this opportunity came. It was my buddy who I've wanted to work with for a while. Great people on I met some really good fucking people. So if I were to be like, you know what? Nah, fuck that. I don't want to do it. I would have met all these really good artists, So, but at the same time, it's like, if another opportunity came along where I play like, Goomba number 4, I'm not going to do it because I've done that already, like I want to kind of, dip my toe in a few more dramatic roles. And then, the project I want you on in the summer is a comedy. I haven't done a comedy in forever. And I'm like, man, like I think acting in a comedy is going to be fun again because I've had a little more life experience, in comedy I think really does derive from weird situations. Like I told you the story, and now you're sending me Instagram videos of like, this shit really happened. Like,
yeah.
really goes down. So, you kind of live from that, but no, yeah, it's, I think the age group we're in, millennials 25 through 40, and maybe I'm being biased. I feel like we are in a really we're in one of the tougher positions than any other age group. Like our parents are like, they were either hippies or they went to Vietnam, and they're on the one side or the other. They are either, like I said, like hippies, or they're like marijuana is bad for you kind of shit. People who are in their 40s and 50s are kind of teeter on that, but like for us it's like, when we were in high school, for me anyway, like we never had really an opportunity to, like, people who are my age, they say like, oh, I don't feel comfortable. I never felt, after high school, a few kids in my grade like came out. And it's like, man, you never would have known in high school. Now, kids are coming out earlier, living their life in high school. It's a lot more accepting now, I really do feel, and maybe, like I said, maybe I'm being biased, but from 25 to 40 years old, I think our age group, millennials, they want to say we're privileged, we're this, we're that. No, I think we've lived a lifetime in a short amount of time. We've seen 9/11. We've seen fucking a pandemic. We've seen war. Like
the crisis, the housing crisis.
Yes, the housing crisis.
Right when we're graduating high school. It's like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Yes, that. We've seen, like, Hurricane Katrina, like we've seen.
Or also that one generation that can't leave the house because we can't afford to do it.
So, before we head out, how do you overcome like imposter syndrome? How have you been able to, win a battle here and there? It might not be every battle, but how have you been able to conquer it? Because I haven't been able to figure it out yet, honestly. So is there a story? Is there a moment where you overcame it? Or if there hasn't been, like, what are some things that you think like you can do and, any artist can do to get over it,
Well, for one, I am really, really doing my best to remind myself what it is that I'm good at, right? And acknowledge that I'm good. And I find that to be, and believe that it is a little bit more challenging for women to do this than it is for men, because strong women who are very, sure of themselves come off as cold, come off as bitter, and like they're full of themselves. And that is something that I don't want to be, right? As we talked about before, like I'm one of those people, I just want to be liked. But I've noticed in the last, since therapy, it's like, it's okay to say, hey, I'm good at this. And then to kind of look at all the other things that I'm good at, right? And it started off with doing, at the end of every day, either writing or saying 3 things that I'm grateful for, right? And that has really helped because I feel that someone who has anxiety, and imposter syndrome obviously falls under that. You're just looking at the negatives, and it can be anything and everything, right? And I think if you just look at 3 things that went really well for you today, and it could be something as simple as like, I got up today, I had an amazing meal. I'm grateful for that hug that I had from my mom for 2 hours yesterday while I cried in bed feeling like absolute trash. And then going from there. And then I've also added affirmations. And one of the things I do is like I have a mantra that helps me for when I'm anxious to like kind of ground me, right? Because if anyone who has anxiety knows this, it's like it's very easy to kind of lose your grasp with the ground and kind of float off, and so like that helps ground me. And then I add my affirmations and I say to myself, I am beautiful, I'm smart, I am talented, I am worthy, and I go through all of these things because I forget who it was that said this, but someone, and I'm sure if we like look it up, we'll find out, but that if you tell yourself something, and especially if you speak to yourself in the third person, you believe it, right? Yeah. So if you say something enough times, you believe it. So, and now I've noticed that that's helped me, right? It's like when I submit work for auditions, I do my best. Sometimes I don't do my best, right? And like, let's be honest, sometimes we're just submitting an audition because we just want to submit an audition, and probably we shouldn't. But that's something we all as performers have to work on. But there have been some auditions that I have done that have been very good. Did I book the job? No.
Yeah.
But I feel good about what I submitted. And like I'll be bummed about it for like a minute, and then I'm like, no. Like they just found like I just wasn't what they were looking for, right? I just have to kind of be cool with that. And then again, like tell myself every day, like do my affirmations. What am I? Who am I? I am special. I'm amazing. Whatever that is. And I just remind myself that, and that definitely helps. And I am a big fan of affirmations. And who better to tell yourself how badass you are than you?
Perfect. That was perfectly said. Kassandra Perez, she is a phenomenal actress, writer, storyteller. So I was very open and honest, and I can tell you were as well. So thank you very much again. And until next time.
Awesome. Thanks.
Once again, this is Where Is My Mind, a podcast about mental health and the arts. I'm host and producer of the podcast, Christopher Orangeo. All episodes will be available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, and Amazon Music. Once again, this is Chris Orangeo, and thank you for supporting.